And I said, you know what? They shot down an unmanned drone, plane, whatever you want to call it. And here we are sitting with 150 dead people. That would have taken place probably within a half an hour after I said go ahead. Yeah. And I didn't like it. I didn't think it was proportionate.
Let us understand, North Vietnam cannot defeat or humiliate the United States. Only Americans can do that.
Hi, everyone. This is episode 11 of The Moral Minority, title yet to be determined. As always, I'm your not-so-humble correspondent, Marcel, and this is my co-host, Dan.
Hi,
Say
Dan.
hi, Dan. Dan, you jumped the queue.
Yeah, I did it I knew it would bother you tremendously.
All right. So, Dan, let's just get our Orange Man bad news out of the way. It's a thick one. The first thing we're going to talk about is Iran. I know that's the news on everyone's lips. I'm actually glad that we do this, our show, on a bi-weekly basis, because it allows us to view the news in chunks. If we were doing what we're about to discuss every day, it would be hard to piece together the narrative properly. But instead, we can just discuss everything that happened since really June 10th in one straight shot. And it's quite the story. So it all started on June 13th when an oil tanker was, I'm going to use the word attacked, off the coast of the Gulf of Oman. Oman, for those who don't know, is a country on the southeastern edge of the Arabian Peninsula and across the sea from Iran. So, of course, this oil tanker was attacked. The State Department, in particular Mike Pompeo, was out in the State Department briefing room saying it was Iran. Iran attacked the boat. Now, attacking boats is a tried and true strategy of people who want to be bombed by the United States. As we all know, the Spanish totally bombed that boat. The Germans totally sank that boat.
Yeah.
The North Vietnamese also sank a boat. Who else sank a boat because they just really wanted to be attacked by the U.S.? So so Iran was like, I really want to see what a cruise missile is like, so let's sink a boat. However, the boat in question was actually Japanese. I think it was also a Norwegian boat, too.
And this was the same day that Japan and Iran's head of states were meeting, right? Or not heads of state.
Shinzo Abe was in Japan at that time. The Ayatollah was seemingly just venting his frustrations with the United States, giving Abe essentially a call-out post at that moment. He was saying how, he was upset that the Americans seemingly couldn't be trusted and negotiated in bad faith, et cetera, et cetera. I heard one theory that the attack on the oil tanker, which I'm just going to say for our audience, this is obviously a false flag. I'm going to go full Alex Jones. This was, and I'll speculate as to who it was. But first, that the attack on the tanker was not actually an attempt to frame Iran, but rather a message to Japan. You have to believe Iran was insane to do that. And certain people do try to make the claim that the Iranian government is insane or irrational. And governments are not acting entities. They cannot themselves be rational because they're not people. They're groups of people. Nonetheless, the idea that the Iranian government isn't rational or somehow systematically less rational than a government is by its nature is always pushed as a reason we can't negotiate with them. Now, I will say this. The attack on these ships was so incompetent because...
You guys been talking for 8 minutes straight. Will say this.
Yeah, another thing.
I will say, you know what? I do have some thoughts.
I do need to speculate as to who perpetrated this attack. So first of all...
This is what I said. Okay, let me do a quick recap. So, this tanker was attacked in some sense. Mike Pompeo came out and said that Iran did it. Literally no one believed Mike Pompeo.
Yes.
Iran came out and said it was a, quote, false flag. After that whole thing died down almost immediately because nobody seemed to believe Mike Pompeo. Even President Trump just quoted him on Twitter, just put in quotes, here's what Mike Pompeo says, didn't actually say it himself. Then, just in the nick of time, a drone, or a plane, whatever you want to call it, was shot down, possibly over Iranian airspace or not. That's in dispute.
The State Department put a map, and it put it like they essentially... It almost looks like they drew a line where Iran's airspace was and then deliberately put the dot right outside the line.
Yeah. And then this was, of course, a step too far. So this was going to be we've had a series of escalating incidents that have put us on the escalator to hell. This was when we were going to the United States was going to attack. And then what happened?
The drone was definitely shot down by Iran. That is undeniable.
Yeah.
Donald Trump then said, so his general said, Donald Trump, we got to pound him. And Donald Trump said, all right, let's bomb him. And so the planes were in the sky. And then after ordering the airstrike, according to Donald Trump, this is what he says he did. He asked how many people would die in the airstrikes. And the generals got back to him later and said about 150. And Donald Trump said, that's a little, I think he said it was disproportionate or it's too much. Because the whole point of a drone is that when it gets shot down, nobody dies. So you would have been avenging a piece of plastic by killing 150 people, which on the one hand is very ANCAP. But I'm going to talk about that ship for a second. So not only was this ship Japanese and not American, and it was nowhere near America. So this is obviously not an American issue. Well, I mean, to the extent that Japan is a protectorate of the United States, I guess it is an American issue. But it was attacked from the starboard side as it was leaving the Gulf of Oman. In other words, okay, the starboard side is the right side, just on the right side. But if you're being attacked on your right while you're heading south, that means you were attacked from the direction of the Arabian Peninsula, not from the direction of Iran. And so one idea is that, well, maybe it was an Iranian mine of some kind, except a mine wouldn't explode above the waterline. A mine, by definition, is under the water. And the fact that the boat failed to sink with all hands and left witnesses to contradict the official story tells me that this wasn't a false flag by the United States, because the United States has hundreds of years of experience at sinking boats. And it wasn't a false flag by Israel, which also has some experience sinking boats. I think this was a false flag by Saudi Arabia. This is the kind of extreme military incompetence that only an Arab could ever demonstrate. And so that's who I think perpetrated the attack on that oil tanker.
Well, everyone was waiting with bated breath for the conclusion of that. So the attack happened. Pompeo said it, whatever. Then Trump counter-signaled Pompeo.
One more thing.
Oh, God, what?
To demonstrate also, by the way, how much nobody believed Mike Pompeo, not only did people in, the mainstream not believe it, not only did Donald Trump not believe it, the price of oil didn't even change.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
The price, there were, Mike Pompeo said, yeah, listen, the war's getting hot. Iran's attacking boats in the Gulf, and oil speculators
with their money on the line.
With money on the line said, no, they're not.
No, I don't. They did. Are they, though? And they just kept on going.
Yeah, they kept trading at normal levels.
It is pretty funny that we've got to that point now where, I don't believe this was an American false flag, but, if it was supposed to be, worst false flag ever.
Yeah, it's like you burst into the grocery store and you're like, guys, it's the apocalypse. Everybody start stockpiling food, and everybody continues shopping at the normal levels. No, nothing changes.
Yeah, and this was like Mike Pompeo. If this was a false flag, this was on level with a YouTube prank video. Mike Pompeo goes to Iran and scuffs people's Nikes. Yeah. No, nobody cares. It's not. Yeah, nobody bought it. Everyone all the comments are everyone going fake, not funny.
Yeah, it's like that with It's funny because that's also how conservatives talk about global warming, or at least certain conservatives who are a little above average in their knowledge of economics, where they say, if global warming is real and the coastline is going to sink any day now, why don't all these rich liberals move away from the beach in California and move 1 or 2 miles inland? Right? Why don't we see property values adjusting to reflect this global warming threat? And so they say, well, the fact that we don't see this means that all these Californians don't really believe in global warming.
Yeah. Or they put their money somewhere.
Yeah, or they put their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. So let me see. What were we talking about here? Yeah, so the first attack, whatever that was, the limpet mine thing, blah, blah, blah. Trump came out. It seemed like he was already pushing back on this because he called it very minor.
Yeah, he called it very minor.
Very minor, which is funny. And
then he said it might have been an accident.
No, that was the drone attack.
Oh, the drone attack was an accident.
The drone attack, he said, he basically gave the Ayatollah an out and said this could have been an accident, a mistake. He said it could be a rogue general or something.
Yeah. The message to that one was clear. He was telling the Ayatollah, fire someone. Anyone, doesn't matter.
Yeah, just fire someone or just come out and say it's been handled and we'll let you consider it a mistake.
Although the Ayatollahs
generous.
did not do that, and
No,
we'll get to that in
and
a
yet
little bit.
there was still no war. But
Right.
Pat Buchanan had an interesting piece,
As he always does.
as he always does. And there was lots of points made in it about how a war would destroy Trump's presidency and blah, blah. But the point that I thought was interesting that he pointed out was that the Ayatollah doesn't seem to want a war. This was after the first attack when he said it was a false flag and we don't want a war. We're always, they say what they say. We're always ready, but we don't want a war. And Trump doesn't want a war. The American people don't want a war, so much so that the Congress, Pompeo ignored Congress, didn't even tell them that he was planning on attacking. And Congress was thrilled because they didn't want to vote on it. The word around the hill is nobody wants to vote on it because if they vote for the war, they are afraid they will not be voted back into their seat, that they'll be thrown out by the voters who don't want a war. But at the same time, they don't want to vote against a war. So the people don't want a war. The people of Iran don't want a war. The head of state of both countries don't want a war. And yet it seems like we're getting a war. Well, that was the point until the other day when Trump just called off the war at the last second. Which, by the way, on the one hand, obviously good for Trump. That's like this is, everything we say here has so much irony. Totally sincere. Good for you, President Trump. Thumbs up.
Even though he ordered the strike in the first place.
Well, that's the second part I was going to say is he didn't kill 150 people. But at the same time, should you get credit for deciding at the last minute not to go through with a crime?
Yes.
Like, I'm going to illegally bomb a country on my own word, which I have no authority to do under the Constitution, and then at the last second, my little heart decides that I don't want to kill 150 people. I don't even know. Is that praiseworthy or not? If someone at the grocery store was about to pull out a AK-47 out of their coat and just waste 150 shoppers, and then they went, you know what? No, not today. Do we give them praise or do we say that,
No, but
what do we say about that?
We can observe the counterfactual that most people who would make it into his situation would not have changed their mind.
Yes.
People in general don't like to change their mind. Politicians do like to change their mind, but not for those reasons.
Yeah.
And politicians who become president definitely don't change their mind on that kind of thing.
And is it possible that only Trump could do that?
Yes, probably.
Like, you know what I mean? Like if a news report leaked that Obama, not even leaked, Trump admitted it. If Obama said, 150 people were going to die and I don't want to kill 150
he'd never
people,
hear the end of it.
He'd never hear the end of it. It would be like, weak Obama, he can't do it. Trump, I feel like, just gets away with it. Trump's the only person because he's so nobody doubts that he's tough and he'll bomb the shit out of whoever. He gets to do that.
Yeah.
Which is a weird, an accident of...
Yeah. One thing that needs to be addressed, and that article you brought by Pat Buchanan also gets into this, there is this thing that, people say, and it's not strictly true when people say, nobody wants a war. Nobody wants a war is a meme, right? Yeah. People who matter want a war. It's people who don't matter that don't want war. Or people who don't matter plus Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right?
Plebs, well, he doesn't matter.
Right, he also doesn't matter.
Like, he stopped this one, but we know that it'll happen anyway.
Yeah. There were powerful people and powerful interests who do want a war, and they have more power than you, and they are very much for bombing the shit out of Iran.
Two other great pieces. Andrew Bacevich wrote, I think these are both for the American Conservative. Andrew Bacevich wrote a piece about Bret Stephens, Warmonger, I think it's called, pointing out that Bret Stephens is one of these people who do want a war. From the New York Times. The failing New York Times, excuse me. And another one is Gareth Porter wrote a piece about John Bolton, who's been, and his, 20-year quest to overthrow the regime in Iran and by war, not just to overthrow it. Like, I think if the Ayatollah called and told John Bolton personally, I'm going to step down tomorrow and you can be the head of the country, I think he would still want to bomb them. Like, his first act as president of Iran would be to bomb a good portion of Iran.
Yes.
And all the, most evil, soulless, lizard creatures in the country have all united on this question, by the way. Tom Cotton, Senator Tom Cotton, Nancy Pelosi, Lindsey Graham, Mike Pompeo, people like Brett Stevens and John Bolton, and most of the people